You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. Hey there, Slow Down Society. Steph here, and welcome back to another edition of the Slow Living Podcast. I am thrilled that you are here. We are on episode 138, and I am going to title this An Introduction to Slow Parenting. And this will be a series. I don't know yet how many parts of this series there will be. And I will tell you right off the bat, they're not going to go in order. Because, well, one, that's not how my brain works. And two, I have already recorded some interviews that are going to be lined up. But when I have an idea for a part of this slow parenting series, I will put it up and we'll link them all together. So in general, this will be part one of a slow parenting series of, I'm not exactly sure how many parts. I will tell you, if you scroll all the way back to the archives, I did talk a little tiny bit about slow parenting and trying to raise quote unquote slow kids in episode 5, which was titled Slowing Your Children Down. I think the idea was how to kind of slow them down in this high-paced, kind of frenzied environment and society that we currently live in. And that is a big deal. A big part of living a calm, peaceful, slow life is to decide on purpose what's important and what's not, and declutter all of the things that's too much. So if you're already overscheduling your kids, if you can already tell that your kids are stressed and too much is being thrown at them, go back, listen to episode 5 on how to slow your kids down. But that's not what this new series or the idea for this series is going to be. Because this is more about you, how you can be a slow parent and parent in a thoughtful way. The acronym for slow that I like to use is Simply.Look.Only.Within. We are in a time period where anything you can possibly want to research is available for you to research. And because of that, a lot of times, maybe, perhaps, you're second guessing yourself when it comes to parenting, or someone down the street is doing it this way. And so you then feel maybe a little behind or a little unworthy or a little feeling like you're doing things wrong. So then you decide from these external circumstances that you're going to shift to try and match that. And it might not line up with who you are, your own ethics, your own morals, your own identity, your own integrity. And so because of that, you don't feel calm. You don't feel centered. So today I want to talk a little bit about that, of how to know and feel calm and confident in your parenting and how you're doing it, and how hopefully this next generation of baby beings that we are raising and creating are even better than us. Because I think a lot of times the way we have decided on purpose to parent might be a little bit different than how we were raised or how we saw parenting play out in television shows or in the movies that we watched growing up. So you probably, if you're listening to this, have already done a lot of kind of the internal work to change the trajectory, to decide that, okay, so I may have been raised this way. I think I could do some tweaking here. I think I could do some modifying to make it even better. The idea for this series has been in my brain for a while. And I am not an expert And I want to really highlight that and underline it and sprinkle some fancy glitter and realize that I am a human, humaning around, raising other humans, and I have made mistakes, and I know this. I know it, and I've apologized. And if my kids are listening, I know I've screwed up in many, many, many ways. I think you are precious and wonderful, and I am so proud of the people that you are turning into, in spite of the mistakes that Daddy and I have made. And you're just great kids. Um, Often as I've parented, I've been congratulated for my children's successes or achievements, and I'm always very quick to dismiss taking credit for anything that my kids have done. And I say, they're their own people. I just fed them and watered them, and they're pretty amazing. Um, and that is what I believe. I believe parenting is unconditional love and support and learning who you are raising, not what you think you are raising or your expectations of what this tiny little baby being may become, but figuring out who is actually here in your arms, in your house, in your life, and then nurturing them and loving on them um, as much as you possibly can, and then providing them the kind of framework to turn into this future adult. On the podcast and in my writing, and especially in that in the Clean Less, Play More book, I talk about how you are not raising children. You are raising future adults. And the hope is that the future adult becomes a self-sustaining human who then can go off and make his or her own living, and then create another family, and also be a part of society and kind of be in this puzzle piece of the world that we're living in, where we all sort of need to work and create like part of the global economy. And you can be annoyed by it, and maybe have the idea that things were better when we were all homesteading and just had this plot of land, and it'd be better if we were all off the grid. And maybe that's your idea of slow living or simple living, is to unplug from it all and go do that. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do, go do it. I'm probably not the best teacher for that because I don't know anything about it. I'm talking about how to raise calm, grounded, hopefully thoughtful, future productive members of society in a slow, steady, and sustainable way. Because I don't want you to burn yourself out, and I don't want you to burn your kids out. So that's sort of where I'm coming from. If you have different ideas, that's fine. I'm good. You do you. And if you have ideas that have worked really well for you, shoot me an email. I'm a real person. I will write back, and I am always learning. I love to learn new things and new philosophies. So that's at steph@stephanieoday.com. You're more than welcome to email me. So I told you that one of the reasons I wanted to record this is because sometimes people will hear the age of my children or what college they're at or what they're studying, and then they'll congratulate me, and I'll sort of dismiss it. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to record this. And then the other was my youngest is currently 14, and we are watching The Babysitter's Club on Netflix. I think she's probably already watched it on her own, but I have never watched it. And my husband most certainly never watched it, nor did he read the books. I grew up reading the Anne M. Martin Babysitter's Club series of books. And I think I've already shared this with you, that growing up, I was a very kind of maternal being. I wanted to play dolls. I nurtured inanimate objects like super balls, and brought all of my stuffed animals to life in my brain, and made elaborate stories with them, and played dollhouse and played Barbies and all of these things. So when the Babysitters Club books came out, I immediately okay, this is what I want to do. I want to babysit. I want to be around kids. And my brother was already younger than I was, so I already had babysat him quite a bit. And there were some different families in the neighborhood where I would watch my brother and then their child too. And then growing up, babysat quite a bit and began teaching as an assistant in preschool classrooms, and then ended up getting an AA, so associate's degree in early childhood education, before I got a BA in English literature. Child development and babies and little kids, I loved learning about. I spent a lot of time reading and researching and learning everything about Maria Montessori and her background and how she thought children did better outside and learning about their environment in a way that was work, and it was children's work. Jean Piaget, fascinated with his ideas of emotional and cognitive development and how that was so entwined in early childhood education. And it's fascinating because now in elementary schools, they're bringing SEL as part of the curriculum, for like front and center, and SEL is social emotional learning. So, but I had already learned all of that stuff in college. And Jean Piaget, I mean, we're talking 1800s, early 1900s. They already had that idea that children thrived in that kind of environment. And then a big part of some of the stuff that I had read about was Waldorf training, and the idea that childhood is sort of broken up into different compartments. You've got your early childhood, and then you've got your kind of middle childhood, which is school age, and then adolescence. And your brain is different in all of those different ages and stages. And so it makes sense to learn different things at different times because of your brain. And then also, we're in Silicon Valley. I'm recording this in Silicon Valley. And where I live, lots of children after school go to like secondary school. They'll go to a Chinese school, they'll go to a Russian math, they'll go to Kumon, they'll go to after school tutoring. They'll do lots and lots of things. And there's two reasons for that, as far as I'm concerned. One, families are not treasured and cherished in our society. People need to work, and children need to be cared for by other people. And if school gets out at 3 o'clock and you're not off work until 6 o'clock, the children have to go somewhere. And that's just a fact. That's just how it works. So there's that. It's a very practical, the kids have to go somewhere, part of after school activities. And then also it's the idea that children's brains are like little sponges. And so if you're going to teach them a language, or if you're going to teach them advanced math, might as well start doing it at a really young age, when their brains supposedly can absorb this information. I in this, and this is my opinion, don't particularly care for that, because I can see it firsthand with the children that are in the elementary school that I'm currently working at. They're burnt out. They cry. They don't want to go to aftercare. They want to go veg out and chill out. That and it's tricky. It's tricky because people want what they believe is best for their child and the future person that they are creating. And I get that. I think some children can thrive in that environment and some do not. And so if we go back to my original sort of thesis for this episode, is get to know your child, and don't give them expectations to live up to that they may not actually be physically, emotionally, cognitively ready for. Get to know them, and then you'll just realize, they'll start asking questions. And that's when you can give more information and start teaching. And again, super tricky. We live in a fast-paced society where um, children are in classes of 20 to 30 by age 5 with a teacher, and it's a lot. So there's a lot of wistfulness of, like, quote unquote, going back to the olden days where things were simpler. And yes, that would be lovely. But sometimes you just have to suck it up and realize that we're living in a time we're living, and let's find a way to incorporate some of these simpler ideas and some of these slow living ideas into the here and now. If you've read the Slow Down and what did I call it? What did I call it? I think I called it I don't remember, but the free book, is it Slow Down and Simplify? I don't know. It's the free ebook on my site. It's funny, I'm having a brain fart right now, but it's 67 pages, and in it I introduced the acronym for PACE, which is Peaceful Acceptance of Changing Events. And that is what life is. So yes, if you are wistful. Oh, Sheldon's under the table whining. If you are wistful and wish for a old-fashioned approach to life, and you're just kind of upset about the whole thing, that might not be serving your needs well. So journal it out, and but then find a way to implement some of those ideas in the here and the now. Back to researching. I think if you take the time to read some of these child development researchers and the pioneers in the field, and then try and implement some of their ideas, such as, like Maria Montessori, open-ended toys, wooden blocks, toys without batteries, things that probably already in your brain is kind of a good idea. Limiting screens. Screens are a tool. We all use them. But being really conscious and aware, deciding to make up some sort of arbitrary rule that you're probably never going to actually stick with, like, oh, my child is not going to ever do this until a certain age, is probably not practical. You're going to end up contradicting yourself. And then because of that, you're going to lose trust that you have follow through and that you make good decisions. So just give yourself some grace and some patience, and others also. Try not to be judgy to others also. Hey there. Are you looking for an easier way to meet your goals without sacrificing your ethics or morals? If so, you're going to want to check out the new masterclass I recorded on how to achieve more by learning how to slow down. I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but I promise you that this is a proven system that works. If you're ready to finally meet your personal and professional goals without sacrificing yourself or your sanity, check out this new recording at stephaniod.com/masterclass. Okay, back to this week's episode. In general, when I think about parenting and slow parenting, I think the overall goal is to not traumatize your kids, and try to be aware that they're watching everything you're doing and absorbing. So if you are the type of person who isn't calm yourself, who hasn't found a way to emotionally regulate yourself, and maybe you're a yeller, or maybe you are sporadic with doling out praise and love, and maybe you yourself aren't super centered. Um, okay, know this. Know this about yourself and then work on it. I know when I was a newer parent, um, I definitely yelled more than I should have. And I knew that yelling is traumatic to children. It's erratic behavior. They can't understand where it's coming from, and it's not okay. I wasn't regulating myself properly. A lot of it was because I was completely and totally exhausted and didn't realize I had sleep apnea. Um, Probably a lot of it, some of it came from postpartum anxiety and psychosis and depression that I dismissed instead of seeking treatment for. It all worked out fine. But looking back on it, I wish I had asked for help and paid attention to it. So if you're in that situation where you can tell that you're not emotionally regulated and little things are you're flying off the handle. If a child tantruming, if you are taking that personally and you're not able to separate the behavior from the person exhibiting the behavior, that's a sign that you're going too fast and you need to slow down and you need to figure out what's going on. Often when children are tantruming, it's because physically there's some stuff going on that they can't control and they're not feeling regulated themselves. Maybe they're hungry, maybe they're tired. Maybe they've got to go to the bathroom. Maybe they are overstimulated. If and that's why a child tantrums. It's the exact same for you as a grown-up adult. If you are having tantrums, if you are upset every time you get in the car and you've got some road rage happening, that's a red flag. That's something to really pay attention to, because if you do have the idea that you want to be a good parent for the children that you have, and you don't want to necessarily parent the way that you were raised, and you aren't able to break this cycle because you haven't figured out that your tendencies are to fly off the handle or to yell or to be dismissive and kind of uh, inappropriately act in front of your children. That is something that you really do need to pay attention and work through. As far as not wanting to traumatize your children, there's a whole bunch there. I mean, natural disasters happen, deaths in the family happen, divorce happens, things that you can't control, and it's how you handle them and talk your children through them is what will keep them from having this sort of like layer upon layer of trauma that hasn't been addressed and worked through. On the soccer field the other day, I was giving some examples to the moms on the side of the soccer field of how, because I have had this background in child development and psychology, I knew when some of the medical things that happened in our household at a young age, I knew it could affect my kids. So I wanted to walk them through it. And I'll give this example. When my middle daughter was 2.5-ish or so, she had a febrile seizure. And a febrile seizure is when your temperature is too high and your brain kind of overreacts and you have a little seizure. And I vividly remember that day. It was warm and we had just re-landscaped the front yard. And I could tell that my 2.5-year-old had a fever, and it was like 100-ish or so with the digital thermometer that you put on her head. And I wanted her to take some Tylenol, and she wouldn't open her little mouth and refused to take the Tylenol. So I'm like, all right. So I put her to bed with a sippy cup of ice water. And then about 35-ish or so minutes later, she climbed out of the bed. She was in a toddler bed. She climbed out of the bed and walked towards me with her arms out like a hug. So then I went to give her a hug. And then right then and there, she had a seizure in my arms. Again, because of my background in early childhood education, I've taken many, many, many first aid and CPR courses. I knew instantly that this was a febrile seizure. My personality is to stay calm in an emergency situation. It just is what it is. If you don't know how your personality is, or if you know you're the kind of person who freezes or freaks out, okay, know this about yourself, and then maybe start working on a plan to not be that way. Often it's journaling, and answering an open-ended question. If I was a calm person in an emergency, I would do this, and then work on that. That was a bit of a side note for you. So Adam was in the front yard watering the new landscaping. I had I think she was probably 5 at the time, older daughter watching all of this. I'm holding now a 2.5-year-old who's seizing. And so I sort of squat down and I'm holding her and I yell out the front door, Adam, I need you to call 911. She's having a seizure. Um, and so he freezes a little bit, and I'm holding the baby, and we probably walked out on the porch at that point. So I repeated it. I said, I need you to call 911. Tell him she's having a febrile seizure. She's contained. And so then I walk back in the house, and then I'm telling my 5-year-old, she is fine. Everything's going to be fine. Daddy's going to call the ambulance. It's fine. Because I knew if I didn't handle this right, this would be a traumatic scar on my 5-year-old's like brain, on her cognitive development. I did not want that. And then I also asked her to go get me the house phone. And I said, I need you to get me the house phone. So she brings me the house phone. By then, probably the 2.5-year-old has stopped and she's contained, and I'm just hugging her. So I called my mom and I said, Adam's called the paramedics. They're on the way. She had a febrile seizure. I need you to come and stay with the older daughter. So all of this is happening. And in general, this is how I am. I'm able to triage and I'm able to stay calm under pressure. I don't know how, and I don't know why. I always eventually do kind of have a freak out after the fact. We've unfortunately needed to go to the emergency room many times and do different things. Later, after everyone is tucked in bed, that's when I allow myself to kind of have an anxiety attack and shake and get it all out of my body. But at the time, I happen to be pretty calm. If that's not you, as I said earlier, that's okay. This is a learnable skill. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is you have little baby beings watching you, and they're learning and they're watching how adults react to things. If you are the type of person who immediately yells, or who immediately shuts down or freaks out or goes into a fetal position in emergency situations, that's not serving your children. And so it's something to pay attention to. And if you need help, ask for it. Ask for help. Okay, let's see. I have some notes here, so I want to just make sure. I get asked questions about discipline, and like raising like good teenagers and that kind of stuff. And probably there will be another part of this slow parenting series where I talk about teenagers in particular. But in general, the best way to have great older kids is to have great younger kids. And you start from the get-go. The best way to have a great teenager is to have a great toddler. And just getting to know your own kid and what excites them, and talking to them and getting on the floor with them, and not being dismissive, not telling them you don't have time for them. I've seen that firsthand. I've seen little kids chasing their parent in the school parking lot, crying, saying, I'm sorry you don't have time right now, and that kind of stuff. So once in a while, great. You can yell, you can be a full-fledged grown-up human and have lots of emotion, but you do have to circle back and make sure that the kid is okay, and that the child's needs were met. And sometimes it's not convenient for you. It's just not. And that's what parenting is parenting is doing what's right for the child, even if it's not convenient for you. There's been plenty of times where we had something on the calendar that we thought we were going to do, but it wasn't correct for the child at the time. The child was tired. The child was hungry. The child was not having it. And so that meant either having to cancel the plans that we wanted to do as grown-ups or pivoting them. There's a lot of people who have the idea that when you're a grown-up, you do the things that you want to do and you bring the child along with you. And I kind of liken it to people bringing the teacup poodle in their purse wherever they go. So sometimes that's okay, but not all the time, because kids need a proper eating and sleeping schedule and all of that kind of stuff. So having a kid out at a certain age at 10 o'clock at night, because that's when you wanted to go out to dinner, fine, maybe on vacation, maybe once in a while here and there, but pay attention, figure out your own kids' wants and needs. And you do have to put them first. You really do. As back to the disciplining thing, I said it in episode 5. And it's this was what we used when I was in working for the county and for the homeless shelter. We taught parenting classes, and the curriculum we used was called 1, 2, 3 Magic, and it's by Dr. Thomas Phelan, and Phelan is Phelan. And probably we used this because it also was in Spanish, and the clientele that we had was Spanish, and it had an accompanying video, and it was just really easy to play the video and then pause it and then talk to the parents. And some of those parents needed to take parenting classes, court-ordered parenting classes, because of different custody things and stuff like that. But it's very basic, and it's essentially how to give proper consequences and timeouts to toddlers and preschoolers, and in a way where you are not upset, because you're not upset at the child, you're upset at the behavior. So you're correcting the behavior, not the child. And so regardless of your parenting philosophy and whether or not you agree with punishments or no punishments or that kind of stuff, in order to eventually have children that are assimilated into a school system and into society, you will need eventually consequences. Adults have to stop at a stop sign, and if they don't, there will be a consequence. Hopefully the consequence is just a ticket and not a car accident. So just pay attention to it. And so the idea is 1, 2, 3 Magic, and 1, 2, 3. And the first time the child exhibits a behavior that you're trying to correct, you say 1. And if they do it again, you say 2. And then when you get to 3, they are seated for a timeout. Some people are very anti-timeout and stuff. So you get to do your own research and then filter it. Slowly look only within. You decide what works for you and your own particular child. If you have a child that has some neurodivergence tendencies, this might not work for you. And that's okay. Again, get to know your child and do what's right for them. Before I sign off, I wanted to point out, oh, Sheldon, you're so silly. I wanted to point out that on the website, I have a list of golden rules for the family. And I think I typed these up when my youngest was a baby, like little baby, and we have it framed in the playroom. You can print these out. You don't need to give me an email address. It's not even branded in any way. So you can totally just print this out and hang it in your house if you'd like. But the golden rules for our family that we still try and stick with and are listed. And so the first one is, when asking for something, say please. When receiving something, say thank you. 2, Unless it's a true emergency, do not interrupt when grown-ups are speaking. Wait until they are finished or until there's a definite pause in the conversation. Call adults by their last name with the proper title, Mr., Mrs., Miss, Ms., etc., unless instructed otherwise. If you have doubt about whether or not you can do something or have something, ask permission from an adult. 5, choose kind words, always. So 6 might be a little outdated, but it's in there anyway. When making a phone call, introduce yourself before asking to speak with the person you are calling. Also, when answering the home phone, introduce yourself the following way. Hello, this is blank. 7, if you are bored, keep it to yourself. You are responsible for your own entertainment. 8, if you see an adult or a friend struggling with something, offer to help right away. Also, if you are seated and an adult is standing, offer your seat. Use proper table manners. Ask for items to be passed, chew with your mouth closed, napkin stays on the lap, and use utensils properly. When finished eating, clear your own place setting. And then number 10 is mom and dad are the bosses. End of story. So some of these ideas might seem a little old school. might probably a little bit old school. But it is what it is. And in general, just know that if you have an idea that you might need to apologize for something, do it. I get on coaching calls and people have remorse sometimes about something that happened and they haven't necessarily apologized for it. And I would like for you to do that. A woman that I work with at work, she said something to me the other day and it sort of stuck with me. She says, Stephanie, you are remarkable because you always address the elephant in the room. And so think about that. If there's something that's weighing on you, and if there's something that you think you made a mistake about, maybe with your parenting or maybe in any other relationship, poke at it and investigate and be curious. And if you can tell in your body you're uncomfortable about something, clear it, address that elephant in the room and get it out of your brain and your body. Okay, pretty people, as always, I think you're amazing and lovely and wonderful. If you have any questions about this, email me. Let me know. This is a work in progress. Again, not an expert. I love my kids, however, and I think I just think they're great, and I like the humans that they're turning into. They're fun. I enjoy them. I enjoy spending time with them, and that is my hope and wish for you with your own family. All right, take care. I will see you again in your earbuds next week. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephanieodea.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.